Welcome to Flashback History, where we explore the most powerful stories, leaders, and events that shaped our world. Today, we dive into the life of Vladimir Putin, a man whose journey from a KGB officer to the president of Russia changed global politics forever. Let's uncover his story. The story of Vladimir Putin is not just a story of a man, but the story of power, ambition, control, and the rebirth of a nation that once stood as a global superpower. To understand how a quiet boy from a struggling post-war city became one of the most powerful and controversial leaders in the modern world, we must go back to the beginning, to a time when the world was divided by ideology, fear, and an invisible line known as the Iron Curtain. Born in 1952 in the city of Leningrad, a place that had suffered immense destruction during World War II, Vladimir Putin grew up in a harsh environment where survival, discipline, and resilience were part of everyday life. His family lived in a small communal apartment, sharing space with others, a reality that was common in the Soviet Union. Life was not easy, and opportunities were limited. But from a young age, Putin developed a strong sense of determination and control. Unlike many children, he was not loud or attention-seeking. Instead, he was quiet, observant, and focused, always watching and learning from the world around him. As he grew older, he became fascinated by power, not the visible kind, but the hidden power that operates behind the scenes. He was deeply interested in intelligence agencies, especially the Soviet Union's most feared organization, a place that had suffered immense destruction during World War II. Vladimir Putin grew up in a harsh environment where survival, discipline, and resilience were part of everyday life. His family lived in a small communal apartment, sharing space with others, a reality that was common in the Soviet Union. Life was not easy, opportunities were limited, but from a young age, Putin developed a strong sense of determination and control. Unlike many children, he was not loud or attention-seeking. Instead, he was quiet, observant, and focused, always watching and learning from the world around him. As he grew older, he became fascinated by power, not the visible kind, but the hidden power that operates behind the scenes. He was deeply interested in intelligence agencies, especially the Soviet Union's most feared organization, the KGB. To him, these were not just spies. They were the silent guardians of the state, the ones who operated in secrecy and controlled the balance of power without ever stepping into the spotlight. This fascination would eventually shape the course of his life. Putin pursued his education with discipline and eventually studied law, a decision that brought him closer to his ultimate goal. Soon, his dream became a reality when he joined the KGB, stepping into a world of secrecy, intelligence, and strategy. This was not just a job, it was a transformation. During his time in the KGB, particularly in East Germany during the Cold War, Putin experienced firsthand the fragile nature of power. He saw how governments operated, how information could shape reality, and how quickly control could collapse. One of the most defining moments came when the Soviet Union began to weaken and protests started rising across Eastern Europe. In East Germany, where Putin was stationed, the situation became tense. The authority that once seemed unbreakable began to crumble. And then, in 1991, the unthinkable happened. The Soviet Union collapsed. For millions of people, it was the end of an era. But for Putin, it was something much deeper. He later described it as one of the greatest geopolitical disasters of the 20th century. The system he had served, believed in, and dedicated his life to simply disappeared. This moment changed him. It shaped his worldview and planted the seeds of a future ambition to restore strength, order, and national pride. After returning to Russia, Putin did not immediately step into power. His rise was slow, calculated, and almost invisible at first. He began working in local government in St. Petersburg, quietly building connections and gaining experience. Unlike many politicians who seek attention, Putin operated differently. He stayed in the background, learning the system, understanding power structures, and positioning himself carefully. his discipline and loyalty did not go unnoticed. Over time, he moved to Moscow, the center of Russian politics, where opportunities were bigger and competition was intense. And then, in a move that surprised many, he was appointed as prime minister in 1999 by President Boris Yeltsin. At that time, Putin was largely unknown to the public. There were no massive campaigns, no decades-long political legacy, and no widespread popularity. But what he had was something different: control, strategy, and timing. Within a short period, his image began to change. Russia was facing internal conflict, especially in regions like Chechnya, and Putin took a strong and decisive stance. His firm approach projected an image of strength and leadership that many Russians felt was missing after years of instability. People began to notice him, and more importantly, they began to trust him. Then came the moment that would change everything. On December 31st, 1999, Boris Yeltsin unexpectedly resigned, and Vladimir Putin became the acting president of Russia. It was a sudden transition, but one that had been carefully prepared. Soon after, he officially won the presidency in 2000, marking the beginning of a new era in Russian politics. As president, Putin focused on restoring stability to a country that had experienced economic chaos, political uncertainty, and a loss of global influence after the fall of the Soviet Union. He worked to centralize power, strengthen the economy, and re-establish Russia's presence on the global stage. In the early years, many Russians supported his leadership, seeing him as the man who brought order back to a broken system. The economy improved, living standards began to rise, and Russia once again started to assert itself internationally. But as his power grew, so did the criticism. Over time, concerns began to emerge about political freedom, media control, and the treatment of opposition voices. Critics argued that Putin was consolidating too much power, while supporters believed he was doing what was necessary to maintain stability and protect national interests. As the years passed, Putin remained at the center of Russian politics, either as president or prime minister, maintaining a level of influence rarely seen in modern democracies. His leadership style was consistent, calculated, strategic, and often unpredictable. On the global stage, Russia under Putin became more assertive. Events like the annexation of Crimea in 2014 and ongoing tensions with Western countries placed him at the center of international attention. The situation escalated further with the conflict in Ukraine, a crisis that not only reshaped regional dynamics, but also impacted global politics, economies, and alliances. For some, Putin is a leader who restored Russia's strength and stood up to Western influence. For others, he is a symbol of authoritarian power and political control. But regardless of perspective, one thing is undeniable: Vladimir Putin has shaped the course of modern history in a way that few leaders have. His journey from a quiet boy in Leningrad to a global power figure is a story of transformation, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of control. It is a story filled with turning points, controversies, and decisions that continue to influence the world today. And to truly understand the man, the power, and the impact, we must explore every stage of his life, from his early struggles in KGB years to his rise in politics, his time in power, and the global conflicts that define his legacy. Because this is not just the story of Vladimir Putin, this is the story of power in the modern world. Thank you for watching Flashback History. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned for more powerful stories from history.